Honorable President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Secretary General, the OIC, Royal Highness, Honorable Foreign Ministers, Excellencies, at the outset, I take this opportunity to thank the Islamic Republic of Mauritania for their generous and gracious hospitality in hosting this session. I would like to express my gratitude to all member states for their invaluable contributions and supports to Pakistan during our tenure as Chair of the Council of Foreign Ministers. I would also like to thank the Secretary General, Taha, for his visionary leadership and the OIC General Secretariat for their extraordinary support during our tenure. I wish to convey my special thanks to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Summit Chair, and the host of our organization for the sustained and dedicated support to the endeavors of the OIC. Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, we are meeting at a critical moment in world history. The international security and economic architecture confronts multiple challenges. Resort to the use and threat of use of force has become frequent. Foreign occupation and intervention are tolerated. Renewed great power rivalries, a global arms race, festering conflicts, terrorism, extremism, hate, Islamophobia and racism, rising poverty and climate impacts are propelling the world towards global turmoil. The Islamic countries must carefully navigate these current realities. We must preserve and promote the security, sovereignty and territorial integrity of our states and the collective interests of the Muslim Ummah. We must be a force for peace and justice, for economic and social progress, for international cooperation as the means to address the multiple global challenges the world confronts today. Dear brothers and sisters, Palestine is our common cause. Our organization was created in response to the desecration of the Holy Al-Aqsa Mosque. OIC member states must continue to condemn Israel's repeated aggression against the Al-Aqsa Mosque and in the occupied Palestinian territories. We must secure self-determination for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. They must have their own state within the 1967 borders, with Al-Quds al-Sharif as the capital of a free Palestinian state. This may seem a daunting task today, yet I am convinced that the arc of history and the hand of the Almighty bends towards justice. Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, Kashmir is also our common cause. Kashmir was forcibly and illegally occupied by India. The Security Council decided that the people of Jammu and Kashmir must be enabled to exercise their recognized right of self-determination through a UN-sponsored plebiscite. Through fraud and force, India has resiled from its commitment to implement the decisions of the Security Council of the United Nations. India instead has resorted to a brutal attempt to impose the Hindutva rulers ominously call a final solution for Kashmir. India's 900,000 occupation army is engaged in a massive and systematic campaign of repression in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmir's identity is sought to be obliterated. Its Muslim majority is to be turned into a minority in their own land, with a flood of outsiders brought in from various parts of India to settle and seize Kashmiri lands and properties in a classic settler colonial project. 3 years after India's unilateral and illegal measures of August 5, 2019, it is evident that its campaign of colonial annexation has failed. It will never succeed. With the will of Almighty Allah, the people of Jammu and Kashmir will win their heroic struggle for freedom and self-determination. Kashmir and Pakistan are bound irrevocably by geography, faith, history and culture, and Pakistan will continue to extend its full political, diplomatic and moral support to the Kashmiri freedom struggle. The OIC Contact Group on Jammu and Kashmir and the OIC Secretary General and his Special Envoy have made an invaluable contribution in projecting and advocating the just cause of the Kashmiri people and their plight under oppression and occupation. I am confident that the OIC Contact Group on Jammu and Kashmir, when it meets here later, will adopt an effective plan to promote the just cause of Kashmir. Dear brothers and sisters, unless the Kashmir dispute is resolved, there will be no durable peace between Pakistan and India. India's atrocities in occupied Kashmir and its aggressive policies towards Pakistan could trigger another conflict, a conflict which could escalate to dangerous levels. The world and the OIC must help to promote a resolution for Kashmir and discourage aggression and restrain reckless arms buildup. Pakistan is prepared for a sincere dialogue to resolve the Kashmir dispute and other outstanding issues with India. But India should create the conditions conducive for such a dialogue by abrogating its unilateral measures initiated in August of 2019. Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, today there are no foreign forces in Afghanistan. There is no civil war. Yet durable peace and security has not dawned in Afghanistan. Together with Afghanistan's immediate neighbors, OIC member states, and the international community, Pakistan has done everything possible to prevent a major humanitarian crisis and economic collapse in Afghanistan. This could revive another conflict, create more refugees, and intensify the threat of terrorism. Despite the challenges, the international community must continue engagement with Afghanistan's interim government, maintain humanitarian assistance, revive the Afghan economy, release Afghanistan's national assets, and support the implementation of the shovel-ready connectivity projects. The OIC should play a leading role in this process. The 17th extraordinary meeting of the OIC foreign ministers held in Islamabad last February adopted a plan for the stabilization of Afghanistan. We should contribute to activate the OIC Fund for Afghanistan. The OIC should also contribute to drawing up a clear pathway for peace in Afghanistan. This pathway, on the one hand, should ask the interim government to fulfill their earlier promises, to fully respect human rights, particularly women's rights, to work and education, promote political inclusivity, and eliminate the terrorist threat from Daesh, the TTP, and other terrorist groups in Afghanistan. On the other hand, fulfillment of these steps by the Afghan interim government can be encouraged by the international community's willingness to consider the progressive termination of international and national sanctions against members of the interim government and its eventual diplomatic recognition and representation at the United Nations. Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, eliminating terrorism is a critical objective for the OIC. We must support all efforts to end terrorism in and from Afghanistan. We should help to suppress terrorist attacks fueled by violent extremist groups and criminal organizations in the Saleh by strengthening the defense and security forces of concerned OIC countries. We should address the root causes of terrorism, including poverty, injustice, and in particular, foreign occupation and a denial of the right to self-determination. We must oppose the new forms of terrorism by the far right, white supremacist, anti-Muslim, and Hindutva groups and ideologies. We must strengthen the United Nations and OIC counter-terrorism architecture. It is vital to address conflicts and disputes within the Islamic world. These erode our unity and solidarity, expose our countries to foreign interference and intervention, fuel terrorism and extremism, and deflect our attention from our development and welfare goals for our people. Pakistan warmly welcomes the agreement reached by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic of Iran to restore diplomatic relations and the constructive role played by the Chinese leadership in facilitating this agreement. It is time that we join together to restore peace in Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and Libya. To this end, the OIC must strengthen its security mechanisms to promote solutions through dialogue and negotiations to all inter-Islamic conflicts and disputes. I hope the conference will agree to continue consideration on Pakistan's proposal to strengthen the OIC security architecture. Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, if we are to be the masters of our own destiny, the Islamic world and each of our nations must achieve genuine economic independence and sovereignty. The economies of most of our members have been devastated by the COVID pandemic, global inflation, climate impacts, and proliferating conflicts. They face a triple crisis in food, fuel, and finance. Pakistan has been hit by a perfect storm. After the impacts of COVID, inflation, and economic collapse in Afghanistan, the consequences of the Ukraine war, my country was devastated by biblical floods last summer. We are grateful for the generous support for emergency relief and for our comprehensive reconstruction plan from brotherly countries and Islamic institutions. However, Pakistan's economic and financial recovery has been eroded by the difficult and interminable negotiations with the IMF. As stated by the UN Secretary General, the international financial architecture is morally bankrupt. The OIC and developing countries must develop a clear strategy to secure equity and equal treatment in the rules and structures of international finance, trade, and taxation. We must establish a special task force of experts to develop such a strategy. We must demand speedy debt restructuring for 60 financially distressed countries, the fulfillment of official development assistance commitments, and the redistribution of unutilized SDRs to developing countries, enlarged lending by multilateral development banks, massive public-private investment in sustainable infrastructure, and the mobilization of the promised climate finance of $100 billion annually. Finally, the OIC countries must prepare themselves for the future. We should instill sustainability and modern physical infrastructure, acquire advanced knowledge and digital capabilities, and the capacity to compete and prosper in the digital global economy and of the future. To this end, Pakistan initiated the agreement for collaboration between the OIC and the Digital Cooperation Organization. I propose that the OIC create a committee for the future which can chart a clear long-term strategy for sustainable growth and development of OIC member states. Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, Islamophobia is an old phenomenon. Since 9/11, Muslims have been frequently associated with terrorism. Islamophobia has now become endemic in several countries and societies. Our faith, which denotes peace and tolerance, our sacred books, and even the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, have been defamed with impunity, utilizing the excuse of so-called freedom of expression. In a number of Western and other countries, Muslims face systemic discrimination and violence. The worst manifestation of Islamophobia is officially sponsored supremacist ideology, Hindutva ideology. 200 million Muslims in India are in grave peril, facing cow vigilantes, lynch mobs, and calls for forceful conversion or expulsion. The organization Genocide Watch has warned of the possibility of genocide. Dear brothers and sisters, the adoption of the General Assembly's resolution on Islamophobia last year as an initiative of the OIC was a significant achievement. Pakistan, as OIC chair, together with the President of the UN General Assembly, in a historic first, convened a session in the UN General Assembly to commemorate the Day to Combat Islamophobia. We are grateful to the UN Secretary General and the Secretary General of the OIC for participating in this commemoration, and I trust that this commemoration of the Day to Combat Islamophobia will now become an annual feature at the United Nations. I have urged the UN Secretary General to formulate an action plan to halt and reverse Islamophobia. Such a plan should include the appointment of a UN Special Envoy, international measures for the protection of Islamic holy sites, the adoption of laws to outlaw hate speech, acts of vandalization of the Holy Quran, and discrimination and violence against Muslims, legal assistance to victims of Islamophobia, and judicial mechanisms to hold those responsible for acts of Islamophobia accountable. The OIC must take the lead in the formulation and the implementation of such an action plan against Islamophobia. Dear brothers and sisters, on 8th of March, International Women's Day, I convened a conference on women in Islam at the United Nations. The purpose was to correct the widespread misperception that women are oppressed in Islamic societies and to celebrate the achievements of Muslim women. This too should become an annual event at the United Nations. Islam was the first to accord equal rights to women. Muslim women have played leadership roles in history and in contemporary times. We should accelerate the implementation of the OIC Action Plan for the advancement of women, mobilize and allocate adequate resources to bridge gender gaps in health, education, science, finance, and other areas, and review and reform laws that discriminate against women. The OIC must accord special attention to programs to assist women and girls in conflict zones under foreign occupation, such as Jammu and Kashmir and Palestine. Dear brothers and sisters, Pakistan's overreaching endeavor during its chairmanship has been to remain the promotion of solidarity, unity, and cooperation among members of the OIC, and to amplify the voice and aspirations of the world's 2 billion Muslims. Apart from several conferences and proposals I have mentioned, Pakistan during its tenure also initiated a discussion on Islamic microfinance, secured adoption of the Convention on Anti-Corruption Law Enforcement, and the adoption of the mid-term review document of the OIC 2025 Programme of Action. Pakistan will host the 18th OIC Trade Fair in June this year, and we also look forward to hosting the OIC Ministerial Conference on Women Empowerment later this year. We will continue to contribute to building the capacity in OIC member states in information and communication technology, health, medicine, education, training and research, including through the Islamabad-based OIC Committee on Science and Technology. Dear brothers and sisters, as Pakistan hands over the chair of the OIC CFN to the brotherly Mauritania, we do so with full confidence that it will endeavor tirelessly to realize the OIC's goals to justice and equality, the well-being of the weak and the vulnerable, regional and global peace and prosperity, and above all, Islamic solidarity, unity, and prosperity. I would like to congratulate and welcome the Foreign Minister of Mauritania as chair of the 49th session of the Council of Foreign Ministers, and convey my best wishes and assurances of full cooperation for successful steering of the Conference of Foreign Ministers. I am confident that this conference will take far-reaching steps to realize our common objectives of the Muslim countries. It has been a unique pleasure and a privilege to serve you in our capacity of Chair of the Council of Foreign Ministers. I will now head over and officially hand over to my successor. The Bureau of the 49th session of the Council of Foreign Ministers. The chair is the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. Vice chairs the State of Palestine, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the People's Republic of Bangladesh. And as a rapporteur, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Please join me in welcoming the Foreign Minister of Mauritania to lead the 49th session of the Council of Foreign Ministers.